Sources close to the Mark Dolan show reveal that Prince Harry has been tirelessly attempting to arrange a private meeting with his father, King Charles, during the latter's 4-day visit to the United States. This visit is described as a real actual royal trip, contrasting sharply with Harry and Meghan's horribly fake fiasco in Australia. Insider reports suggest Harry has been working on this for months, only to be met with consistent resistance from Charles. This firmly establishes the current state of their strained father-son relationship. The last recorded meeting between Harry and Charles, held at Clarence House within the past year, reportedly lasted only 45 minutes, with Harry publicly deeming it too formal. Since then, Charles has granted no further meetings. Now, despite Charles being on American soil for a diplomatically crucial 4-day visit, there are reports of a deliberate lack of contact between father and son. The Sussex spokesperson's defensive statement to Fox News, asserting, "There will be no meeting as it is a state visit, not a holiday," inadvertently confirms Harry and Meghan's desire for such an encounter. This seemingly technical accuracy is, in fact, a carefully crafted PR move designed to manage public perception, implying that the Sussexes were not seeking a meeting, when in reality, the public expectation of one had already been established. It's said that Harry has been relentlessly calling, desperately hoping to connect with his father. However, a furious Sussex spokesperson informed Fox News that no meeting would occur due to the nature of the state visit. Whispers within royal circles suggest Harry is consumed by jealousy, watching Charles and Camilla bask in the attention of the American establishment, believing he should be a central figure, even in the White House. This alleged psychological state offers a new perspective on the timing of Harry's Ukraine speech, which is now seen as a strategic move to secure headlines and maintain his international presence before his father's arrival potentially overshadowed him. The Ukraine forum, therefore, appears to have been a calculated vehicle for his jealousy. An insider speaking to Closer magazine further illuminates Prince William's growing anger. He is reportedly angrier than ever and has delivered an ultimatum to Charles, urging him to acknowledge Harry's actions and get Harry back in his box. The source claims Harry's jealousy over Charles and Camilla receiving all the attention is immense, believing he should be at the forefront of this huge occasion, even in the White House. The specific catalyst for this escalation is Harry's comments during his Australian tour, particularly his assertion that the royal roll killed his mother, made in Australia, a Commonwealth country where the king serves as head of state. This statement, made in such a sensitive location with profound institutional implications, is said to have enraged William. William's fury is described as entirely understandable from an institutional standpoint. As the heir apparent, he is poised to inherit the very institution Harry publicly accused of contributing to their mother's death. The institutional damage caused by such a globally covered and uncontradicted claim, made in Australia, directly impacts the monarchy William is destined to lead. He is now reportedly begging King Charles to recognize the threat of Harry and has issued an ultimatum. Harry must be reined in. Every negative comment Harry makes about the royal family in Commonwealth countries creates a burden William will eventually have to manage. It's as if Harry is accumulating a debt William will have to repay with institutional capital he hasn't even received yet. The Closer magazine source also reveals intriguing internal palace dynamics. A growing number of senior aides are reportedly warming to the idea of Harry and Meghan resuming some form of royal involvement. This is contrasted with King Charles himself, who is apparently inching closer to endorsing what William views as a disaster. William, despite his efforts, is reportedly getting nowhere in convincing his father to see his perspective. This highlights a significant internal conflict within the palace, far from the united front typically presented to the public. It's a genuine disagreement between the reigning monarch and the future king concerning one of the most crucial institutional decisions of the current era. The quote, "I don't want this role because this role killed my mom and I was very much against it," resonates with the Closer magazine insider's report that this statement angered William. Richard Eden previously identified an establishment push for Harry's rehabilitation as a coordinated effort, and the Closer insider confirms this, stating that senior figures believe Harry is doing a good job with the fake royal tour and deserves accommodation. This burgeoning institutional consensus is the real battle William is fighting, not just against Harry, but against a tide that, without his objection, would permit Harry's return. These proponents of accommodation aren't foolish or malicious. They operate under a specific institutional logic. An uncontrolled, Sussex brand in Commonwealth countries is far more damaging than a managed return with oversight. The idea that the royal family needs to bring Harry back to fix the royal brand, reportedly, sickens William. He feels he's being sidelined, as his father is entertaining these opinions and moving closer to what William believes would be a catastrophic decision. William is deeply concerned that Charles might fold. The argument among those pushing for accommodation is that if Harry intends to conduct royal-style tour regardless, it's better to have institutional involvement to curb the worst excesses. William's counterargument, as relayed by the source, is that if Charles gives in, Harry is just going to have more rope to hang them all with. This reflects an institutional fear that every concession sets a dangerous precedent, making it increasingly difficult to reverse. The half-in, half-out arrangement, famously rejected by Queen Elizabeth II in January 2020, is reportedly being resurrected in a new form by different voices 6 years later. Should Charles agree, William would not only inherit this arrangement, but also the dangerous precedent it establishes. That conduct violating the Sandringham Agreement can be rewarded rather than addressed. William fears this would simply give Harry more rope to cause further damage, leaving William to clean up the mess. He is desperately trying to make his father understand his perspective, but feels his pleas are falling on deaf ears. There's a genuine concern that the threat of Harry's continued controversial actions could be leveraged for even more accommodation. King Charles's address to both houses of Congress, only the second time a British monarch has done so since Elizabeth II in 1991, provides a stark institutional backdrop to the painful Harry dimension of the week. Charles is undertaking a historically significant act of royal diplomacy, addressing the legislative body of the world's most powerful nation and representing the enduring bilateral relationship between two crucial allies. Meanwhile, Harry, allegedly consumed with jealousy, cannot deliver such a speech, represent the special relationship, or perform any of the vital duties associated with a state visit because he chose to leave. He opted for California commercial ventures, the opera interview, a memoir, a Netflix documentary, a sealed retreat, and even a Bondi Beach clothing listing. As Charles prepares to address both houses of Congress on April 28th, becoming only the second British monarch to do so after Queen Elizabeth II in 1991, it's clear that Harry yearns for such a platform. However, he's expected to put up and shut up, as this is his father's moment. Now Harry is reportedly watching his father, who is managing cancer treatment and even paused it for this trip, receive the American establishment's full attention for fulfilling the very role Harry was born into, but chose to abandon. The jealousy described by the insider isn't petty. It's the specific grief of someone who understands at some level what he gave up. He relinquished the congressional address, the state dinner at the White House, the bilateral relationship, and the profound historical significance of being the heir apparent to an institution representing a 250-year-old relationship. He traded these monumental opportunities for a $50,000 speaking fee, a retreat with 47 paying guests, and a Ukraine forum that was dismissed by Trump from the Oval Office. The grief of that trade is real. In contrast, William has been incredibly loyal and hasn't put a foot wrong in years. He has a beautiful wife who's an amazing princess and will be an amazing queen in Catherine, is hardworking, has his passion projects like the Earth Prize and the homelessness issue, and is an amazing father. He has also supported Catherine and his father through their respective cancer battles. Harry's jealousy is portrayed as an expression of his grief, with the source characterizing him as consumed by it, suggesting he is beginning to grasp the true weight of what he sacrificed. This isn't primarily about missing family relationships, but rather witnessing in real time the institutional significance he relinquished being carried by his father and brother in contexts he can no longer access, in roles he chose to abandon, and in a service that was his birthright but is no longer. The official record of the state visit will encompass the congressional address, the state dinner, the 9/11 memorial, the bilateral repair efforts, the warmth with Trump, and the garden party. However, it will also chronicle Harry's jealousy, his unsuccessful attempts to secure a meeting, the spokesperson's defensive statement to Fox News, and William's reported fury over the Australian tour remarks. Some even suggest that Harry is a wrecking ball, a hot mess who would offend dignitaries due to his bitter, deranged, deluded, and angry demeanor. The insider's account of an internal palace dispute, the current king being swayed toward accommodation while the future king issues ultimatums against it, will also be etched into this record. All these events unfolding within the same week will form part of the permanent historical narrative. King Charles, standing at the podium to deliver the congressional address, embodying the bilateral relationship and performing the institutional service his role demands, will be juxtaposed against Harry's Ukraine speech and his palpable jealousy. This week encapsulates the stark reality of what was traded, what remains, and the immense cost of those choices. The time capsule Charles contributed to during the state visit, linking to America's 250th anniversary and set to be opened in 2276, is a specific historical gesture that underscores the visit's profound significance. The bilateral relationship between Britain and America has endured 250 years of conflict, alliance, occasional tension, and sustained mutual dependence. The time capsule acknowledges that, irrespective of current political moments, tensions, and realignments, this relationship will continue to exist and matter in 2276, long after Charles and Trump are gone. It represents the enduring institutional view, emphasizing that the relationship itself outlives its current actors, a principle the monarchy exists to embody, transcending the specific political positions of any given monarch or government. Queen Elizabeth II cemented this continuity over 70 years of state visits, private meetings, and the unique human warmth inherent in her constitutional role. Charles is now extending this legacy within the specific context of an Anglo-American relationship under strain, even pausing his cancer treatment to do so, all while his host faced a third assassination attempt. William will further extend this continuity when his time comes, while Harry, wherever his next quasi-royal tour takes him, will observe the bilateral relationship persisting without him. The Closer magazine insider's most crucial observation, that William believes welcoming the Sussexes back in any half-in, half-out capacity would signal the beginning of the end for the royal family, frames the institutional stakes William has consistently articulated. He isn't driven by a personal grudge, but by a fervent defense of the institutional principle established by the Sandringham Agreement, a principle Harry's Ukrainian declaration of continued working royal status has explicitly repudiated. If this repudiation is rewarded with accommodation, the principle is nullified, stripping the institution of its ability to define who represents it and on what terms. This, the source reveals, is the specific institutional danger William has identified as his core concern. It's not about his personal relationship with Harry, which is reportedly beyond repair, nor primarily about the financial implications of their titles, though those are real. It's about the fundamental institutional principle that dictates whether the crown can control its own representation. If Harry can unilaterally declare himself a working royal from a Kiev security forum and be rewarded with a half-in, half-out return to institutional proximity, then the crown's authority over its own representation is compromised. Any extended royal family member could then conduct quasi-royal tour, make geopolitical statements, and commercially exploit the institutional brand, citing Harry's actions as a legitimate precedent. William understands this with the chilling clarity of someone observing it unfold, knowing he will eventually be forced to either enforce this principle or abandon it entirely. He is delivering this ultimatum to Charles now because a critical decision point is looming. Harry's upcoming Invictus return this summer will bring him to Britain, and an Africa tour is already being planned. The half-in, half-out rehabilitation sequence is reportedly being pushed by figures within the palace. The core institutional principle is under immense pressure, and William, who cannot yet act institutionally, is utilizing every available channel to ensure that when Charles makes his decision, he fully comprehends what William believes the catastrophic consequences of accommodation will be. The central question lingering in William's mind is whether Charles will ultimately fold. The state visit's firm stance offers some tentative answers. Charles has resisted Harry's attempts to orchestrate a New York meeting, declined the Sandringham invitation, and maintained a resolute position regarding the visit. These are institutional signals of a monarch who, perhaps for the first time with such clarity, is listening to William rather than defaulting to paternal instinct. The real question is whether this newfound firmness will endure after the state visit, particularly when Harry initiates his summer return to Britain with Invictus preparations as his institutional pretext. History shows a pattern of Charles's periods of firmness being followed by softening, as his paternal instincts reassert themselves. Instances like the brief 45-minute Clarence House meeting, the non-response to the Australian tour, and the absence of institutional action following the "I will always be part of the royal family" declaration illustrate this trend. Each moment of institutional resolve has been succeeded by a roll with the punches default. William, aware of this pattern, is delivering ultimatums, striving to maintain the line for his father during a period when Charles might waver. He cannot enforce this institutionally, but can only apply sustained pressure, making his position unequivocally clear at every opportunity. His aim is that, when Charles is tempted to extend a hand to Harry again, he will fully understand William's objections and what William will do when the institutional authority eventually becomes his. The state visit is a testament to Charles's dedication, with the congressional address marking its institutional zenith and the time capsule symbolizing the long-term perspective. Meanwhile, in Montecito, Harry is reportedly observing all of this, consumed with jealousy, awaiting a phone call Charles is not going to make. He is planning his Invictus summer return to Britain in July, all while a Tatler cover featuring his brother, "A Prince for Our Times," rests on his coffee table in a house secured by multiple mortgages. The permanent record, unyielding and impartial, will meticulously document the congressional address, Harry's jealousy, William's ultimatum, and Charles's firmness. It will also contain the time capsule, sealed until 2276, a profound institutional gesture by someone who understands the enduring significance of his actions, far beyond this moment, this week, or even this reign. Charles signed it, boarded the plane, paused his cancer treatment, and diligently performed his duties, and the permanent record, ever patient, will contain every detail. The Richard Eden conspiracy theory, which suggested a coordinated establishment effort to reintegrate Harry and Meghan into some form of royal involvement, is now corroborated by the Closer magazine insider's account of internal palace dynamics. Two independent sources, acting separately, describe the same phenomenon: individuals within the institutional framework who believe that a managed accommodation of Harry is preferable to the uncontrolled situation, exemplified by the Australian tour and the Ukraine speech. This convergence of independent sources on the same internal dynamic lends significantly more credibility to the account than either source could provide alone. The argument for accommodation is not without merit. Even if William's counterargument ultimately proves more persuasive, the accommodation stance acknowledges that Harry will likely continue to conduct quasi-royal tour in Commonwealth countries regardless of any directives. He has demonstrated this across Jordan, Ukraine, Australia, and with announced plans for Africa. He is expected in Britain this summer for Invictus and will likely return to Africa or another Commonwealth country in the autumn. Each of these tours invariably creates a host of complications: managed coverage, carefully curated pool photographs, the institutional adjacency that his titles provide, and the commercial exploitation that the Sandringham Agreement explicitly prohibited. Without institutional intervention, specifically title revocation, none of this will cease. Yet, institutional action, such as an ordering council, also risks fueling further content, leading to documentaries, memoirs, and opera follow-ups. The accommodation argument posits that, given Harry's inevitable tour and the fact that institutional action often generates more content, the least damaging path is to provide some oversight of these tours while containing Harry within a structure that limits his most damaging excesses. William, however, argues that any accommodation legitimizes his conduct, establishes a precedent that can only be expanded rather than reversed, and ultimately leads to a situation where Harry's commercial exploitation of the institutional brand is not merely tolerated but institutionally endorsed. Both arguments possess internal coherence. The accommodation argument presents a strong practical case for the short term. In contrast, William's argument offers a more robust institutional case for the long term. Charles, navigating the short term amidst his cancer battle, paternal affection, and the personal cost of confrontation, has been drawn towards the accommodation argument. William, managing the long term as the future king who will inherit the consequences of current decisions, is delivering his counterargument with all the force available to an heir apparent who cannot yet directly intervene. The decision is imminent, and the summer will reveal which argument ultimately prevailed. If Harry arrives in Britain for Invictus to a warm institutional reception, the accommodation argument will have won this round. However, if he encounters the kind of firm distance suggested by Charles's no meeting stance during the state visit, William's argument will have held its ground. The indelible record will unequivocally show the outcome. Charles's congressional address, Harry's jealousy, William's ultimatum, and the time capsule sealed in Washington, D.C., all these elements, patient and available, will contribute to the ongoing narrative of what transpired when an institution built across centuries was challenged by a commercial operation exploiting that very legacy, and what the institution ultimately chose to do about it. The visit continues, the address to Congress is scheduled, the state dinner is planned, the time capsule is sealed, and Harry remains in California watching. The 250th anniversary context of America's independence imbues the state visit with a profound historical resonance, extending beyond its immediate bilateral repair mission. 250 years ago, the relationship between Britain and America was defined by conflict. The Revolutionary War, the Declaration of Independence, and the explicit repudiation of British monarchy embodied in the American founding documents. Since then, the bilateral relationship has undergone a gradual transformation from this foundational conflict into the most enduring alliance in modern history, characterized by the shared sacrifice of 2 world wars, the Cold War's NATO framework, and intelligence-sharing arrangements that remain among the most sensitive in both countries' national security architectures. Charles's visit for the 250th anniversary is a specific acknowledgement that the relationship has not only survived its founding conflict, but that both parties recognize its continued importance, irrespective of current political tensions.